And it's very easy. It's just we'll hold it in short term, medium term, and long term money flows in tax efficient silos to basically create intergenerational wealth.
Yeah, you can have the best tools in the hands of a bad craftsman, or average tools in the hands of an amazing craftsman. It's down to how you use those tools. And I think AI is a tool, it's not the craftsman.
Our culture inside is always to think bigger and do things different to what the competition would do, or to what, I hate the word ordinary people, but what the majority of people would do within any particular sector.
Whereas to me, if I can have that kind of work ethic, that guttural drive, that desire to be different, and I can overlay that with education, you become unstoppable. Welcome back to another episode of Success is a System. I'm joined today by Richie Collins, all the way over from Ireland, and we're talking about wealth. And the reason we're talking about wealth is that Richie runs a conference twice a year called the Wealth Summit, as well as Walfrid Private Financial. And I want to talk about that because it's not just about making money, it's about keeping money. It's about making money smart rather than always just working hard. And that's what Richie does, that's what Richie does, that's what he advises on. And he gets great speakers, the likes of Stephen Bartlett will be going to his next Wealth Summit. And I want to talk all things financial. So, firstly, Richie, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for flying over.
Thanks for having us. I know it was delayed, but thanks for having me. We're here in the end. So I reached out to Mike early on at the start of the summer there. Just I've seen some of his content on social channels, and I just thought it was brilliant. So as you mentioned, we have the Wealth Summit coming up next November. We just had one in May, and Mike is going to come over because I think what he has can help business owners and entrepreneurs in Ireland to scale the way he has helped other people in the UK.
Thank you. Well, birds of a feather flock together. So, I find that when you go to school, you don't just have one teacher. You have different teachers at a school because they'll all teach you different subjects. Some will be good, some will be bad. We're all good, of course. But so I learn from everyone who comes on my podcast, and I hope to give something back. We'll make sure that we put the link to the Wealth Summit and to Walfrid Private on the show notes.
Lovely.
So that will be there as well if anyone wants to follow up. And when we post it, we'll make sure we got the date and the timing and the details and how people find out more. So,
perfect.
But let's go way, way back, because I always think that when people are looking to go into business, they might be full of uncertainty, thinking, I'm not good enough for business, or people like me don't do that, or there's not enough opportunity. So I like to go back and let them see that people come from a really varied background. Tell me about Richie as a kid, and brothers, sisters, family. Was it countryside? Was it urban? Were you in the kind of straight A set at school? Tell us a bit more about you.
So look, I had a very colourful kind of background. We bring it way back. I was born hyperactive. I couldn't eat certain foods, so E102, packet of Skittles, packet of Smarties. The poor mother and father were pulling me off the roof trying to calm me down. So I think, like, as you said, everything happens at different stages of your life. I think it's that kind of, the way I see the world a little bit differently through kind of hyperactivity, maybe a bit of ADHD, has helped me get to where I am because I never stop. I'm hyperactive, bang, 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 yeah. So my family background was very, very humble. My father was a tradesman. He got cancer at the age of 55, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He survived it. He was always big on education because he didn't come from a family of, let's call it silver spoon or privilege. And he basically, at 55, stopped his tradesman stuff and became a taxi driver.
Right.
And taxi, I was just telling Raf that dropped us on the way up there, taxis back in Ireland at the time were 200,000 euros a plate. My dad had 5 of them. We got them for free off my granddad, who was in with someone in the council back in the 60s. That's the way Ireland kind of works, and probably everywhere in the UK. But my dad kept one of them for a rainy day, and gave 4 away to family members and whatnot. So he did that until he died at 75. And my mother just used to help out in the school, the local school. Mm-hmm. I have a brother, Eddie, who is now COO of Walfrid Private and the Wealth Summit. He was a school principal, headmaster, used to deal with disadvantaged and, let's say, gangsters' children in Dublin. Inner city kids that were streetwise, didn't believe in education, but just believed in making money. He had some awful things with kids dying and whatnot. And he got to an intersection, a crossroads in his career. And it was either get off the bus, the school bus, and get onto the kind of private commerce side of things. So he came in and became a director of Walfrid Private for me. So I have a sister, Charlotte, who is a bank manager, and another sister, Claudia, who is a school teacher, again in another rough part of Dublin. So after school, I went to college. After college, I did accounting and finance there. I had a full-time job. Didn't really believe in the education side, but of it, my father was big on education because he never had it. So was my mother. So I got great school, and my father, like, he had all them encyclopedias. Remember, before the internet at home,
Britannica.
Britannica, whatever it's called. I still have nightmares of them on the shelf. So we were always thrown into them every Saturday and Sunday to do little home projects and whatnot, and that kind of gave me the discipline, I believe. So after the whole college thing, I became a holiday rep. So I went away. I planned to go and conquer the world and live in a raft and all that kind of stuff, and that probably lasted about 6 weeks. So I came back after that, and the mother threw the yellow pages at me. And so get out of bed, make a name for yourself. So started off at A. I did finance. So I said, well, accountancy is probably the way to approach this in the yellow pages. So rang 4 accountants and got 3 interviews, and got offered 2 of the jobs. So I went off and did that for a short time. They bring you in, they give you the shoebox of receipts, and you have to start inputting it. And I went, But they offered me a professional education path. So off I went, did that for a couple of years, and then at the end of it, I was just like, what am I going to do? So I got offered a job by a client to become financial controller, and I went, I'll have a bit of that. It's a little bit more commercially minded than just doing the number crunching.
Just to enter this place, what was driving you at that time? Were you driven by money? Were you driven by success, recognition? What was motivating you to carry on down that financial accountancy route?
Hyperactivity. I got something, I hadn't mastered it, and I just said, I'm going to go with this. I probably still haven't mastered it, but I'm having a go at it, right? So what happened then is, after the accountants put me through the college thing, I said a client offered me a job, and that was great. I was getting to see the property side of things. It was involved in the kind of, back in the Celtic Tiger we had in Ireland, it's where money was, you could get 150% mortgages if you knew the bank manager. So money was available widely, and everybody became a developer. So I got the job as a financial controller and started working on, it wasn't just financial controller of the practice of the architects, it was putting deals together for the developers and the people that were around the architect practice. So really enjoyed that, and then I got fed up with it, just purely because we were getting all the deals done, wasn't happening quick enough. I felt that things could be done a lot more efficiently, but the lads were older in their career and didn't have the same passion that a spotty-chinned young lad coming through probably had, right? So I went for accountancy jobs then again, right, on the recommendation of a recruiter. And what happened there was, went for a couple of interviews with BDO, franchise back in Ireland, and I got 3 red cards straight away for auditor jobs.
Really?
So I went, obviously there's a clash of the brains there. But when shortly after, I got approached by the same recruiter, said, look, the guys have sold out of the BDO franchise and they're setting up a private wealth management company called Wealth and Property Solutions. And basically they're buying prime commercial real estate all around the world. So we bought the likes of the Boots flagship building in Oxford Street, Dortmund we were in, Berlin, Marmarhaus. So that's where we ended up. But they took me on anyway as investment manager, just running simulations and cash flow analysis. And it all comes back down to that cash flow. It could be a fancy building, but it's just a spreadsheet. Money in, money out, profit.
Well, and one of the things that I don't know if you ever heard on my podcast, but I've said several times that the person I hated most in any business that I've run was the FD, because they always told me what I couldn't do. But the person I respected most and was always my number 2 was the FD, because the numbers never lie. You know, you might not like them, and you might then have to go to the FD and say, okay, don't tell me I can't do it. Tell me how we could do it. Tell me what we need to get to do it. But they never lie, and the business, you'll go bust because of lack of cash, not lack of opportunity. It was
100%. Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So after the lads took me on as investment manager, then kind of moved up the ranks in there. As I said, we were buying the prime commercial stuff, the kind of like big shopping centres, retail parks all around the world. And I finished up in Abu Dhabi around '07, just before
crash.
the parachute was coming, because one of the shareholders was a Malaysian gentleman who set up the BDO franchise back home, and he had heard about these wins that were coming across well in advance of anybody in Ireland did, right?
Yeah.
Because of his contacts out that way. So I got made redundant. I had only got my father, Lord of Mercy, and him gave me the deposit for the first apartment as a few bob off, get yourself sorted. And the first mortgage payment came in '07. I think it was the 7th of July '07. It was due, and then it was all in the papers that like the poo was hitting the fan, blah, 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 blah. I got made redundant. So I bounced the first mortgage payment, the only thing I've ever bounced. And then loan off mammy for number 2 mortgage payment, and then said, look, I have to do something here. So looked at my skills, a bit of a gob on me, right? I'd like to think. I've technically love what I do, right? And back then I hadn't done all the wealth management exams, but I knew I could pivot very quickly. And I loved helping people and adding value. So if you put them together, you have a business or you have something to work for, maybe the opportunity for a job, or else go out and do it your way, from in a more, how would I say it, in a more fresher type of approach than the old accountancy stigmatism.
I mean, that's something that jumps out really, that you don't look or sound or act like the typical accountant or the kind of vision of an accountant. But I do think the world is changing. An accountant isn't someone who does the accounts anymore. They need to be someone who advises us what we should be doing, how we can get finance, what we need to do to pitch, how to package that pitch, how to get the optimized output, how to reduce our tax outlay, and also, and it's the use of money that is becoming more important to businesses. I think it's always been there, but people are getting savvy to the fact that it isn't just someone who you give a bag of receipts and they do the necessary. It's someone who's a key part of your business. Yeah,
so like when that kind of kicked off and I seen that there was opportunity to add value elsewhere, what I did was I set up Walfrid Private, and it took a few years to get regulated, and we can probably just say 2012 is when it really kicked off. All the clients came together under that umbrella, if you want to call it. And since then, we've been helping business owners protect, accumulate, extract and retain wealth.
And you can do that in which countries currently?
The Republic of Ireland, or we have that little thing up the north called the border. So a lot of our clients might live up the north, but will have a business down south. So there's certain things that we can do. It's quite limited, but there's certain things. So most of our clients are business owners in the 26 counties of the Republic of Ireland.
And like BDO, would you be looking going forward to expand internationally, and then sort of picking up the accountancy regulations in different countries?
Yeah, so we don't really do accounts anymore. Like I always chop it into the two sides of the brain. The accountancy stuff is obviously looking back at what happened, right? The commercial side for me is the wealth management.
Once you've got the cash,
that's it. What we're going to do with it, money. And it's very easy. It's just we'll hold it in short term, medium term, and long term money flows in tax efficient silos to basically create intergenerational wealth. And again, no matter what the client does or what industry they come from, it's applicable. It's not a blueprint, but it's close to. It's just what they want to do. We reverse engineer their life. We look at lifestyle planning, then we do the financial planning, and then the advisory bit is just picking the return.
So this is your 11th year since you were regulated.
Yeah.
How's it all going?
It's grand. It's never perfect. There's challenges. I think the biggest challenge any business have, if you're selling sweets or selling airplanes, is labour. Yeah, we just cannot get enough qualified people with the right 10x mindset. I'm really passionate about the 10x mindset to deliver and to come and join the organisation.
So for people who don't know what you mean when you say 10x mindset, explain that a little bit more. So tell us what that is.
10x is big think and big action. So we like
this is straight from Grant Cardone, and you've evolved that.
I also did strategic coach with Dan Sullivan in the States, and he used to come into London every quarter for it. And that was 10x as well, just at a zero. But from that perspective, I've always our culture inside is always to think bigger and do things different to what the competition would do, or to what, I hate the word ordinary people, but what the majority of people would do within any particular sector, and not go the extra mile. So that's what the 10x culture is inside in the office. But we just cannot get enough people to scale as quick as the business is coming
And is
in.
that because people that often have a legal financial mindset are more about safety than they are about kind of, let's go for it, let's do it?
Entirely right, I'd say. But there's there's nothing wrong with that either. But we find that in order for us to basically, we have a lot of funnels out there and introducers of business from different organizations and industry representative associations. We could be doing probably 10 times the business, but just we don't have 10 times the labor, which is where AI and all that beautiful stuff is coming in, that will not help us to cut costs, because I don't believe in cutting costs where there's an opportunity to scale. So we're going to use AI as a growth mechanism to allow us to hire more people, but get to where we want to be.
So obviously AI has been a big conversation lately in lots of businesses I've been talking to. And one of the things that I remember one of my old bosses and mentors saying was, if I look at a beautiful cabinet, and he'll say, look at that beautiful cabinet, what tools do you think were necessary to build that cabinet? I said, a saw, a plane, sandpaper, all these different things. He said, okay, what built it, the tools or the craftsman kind of thing?
Yeah.
And of course, the answer is that, you can have the best tools in the hands of a bad craftsman, or average tools in the hands of an amazing craftsman. It's down to how you use those tools. And I think AI is a tool, it's not the craftsman.
No,
although it's doing more work than maybe other tools used to do in the past, I think. So it is interesting, but to me, you know what you're talking about, and it may be slightly behaviorally limiting in a finance world to find those people that can think 10x or 100x and so on. But businesses all over the world now are struggling to get great people. And so one of the things that we focus on, and we're doing a conference in September at Burley, and then building on from there, is how to attract, train, motivate and retain great people. Because building winning teams is important to everybody. And it's more important the smaller your team. If you've got 1,000 people, 10 of them can leave, it ain't going to be a problem. If you've got 10 people and 2 of them leave, you're probably starting to struggle, because you haven't got the capacity to take prisoners or carry people. So tell me then about the Wealth Summit, because that was how we first started talking. So we've gone from accountancy and consultancy around that, and property advisory and purchasing and so on. We've evolved into Walfrid Private, which is about helping people once they got the money to keep the money, to grow the money, and so on. But more recently, what we're seeing from you on social is around the summits. You've had your first one. Tell us about that.
Yes, we've been running these since well before COVID, but in a different guise, kind of smaller, more intimate. But to rent a room out for €10,000 and put 2 people in, you might as well put 200 in or 2,000 people in. So again, that's a 10x thing kicking in there. So we this year with COVID on the back of it, we did one in the Shelburne Hotel, Grafton Street, just off it. So we did one there. We had 100 and odd entrepreneurs, business owners in. Then we said, feck it, we'll have a go at it again. We did 250 in May the 11th in the Westin Hotel, again in Dublin city centre. We had Irish influencers from business perspective there. So we had Suzanne Jackson. She fabulous story. She's turned 20 million now. Basically started off on Instagram or Facebook back in the day, and has built a makeup empire. Manufacturing her own stuff. Just a brilliant mindset. With Ivan Yates, he's the bankrupt bookie, we call him, and he was MC. He's a broadcaster. He had a fantastic business, and again, just didn't pivot quick enough when Paddy Power was going online. He was opening more shops. So then we had economists in and whatnot. So we've always been planning for a long time. Again, I told you my father passed away. That kind of decelerated things. Then COVID kicked in. But we'd always planned to get into the likes of the RDS in Dublin, which is the Royal Dublin Society. As I said earlier on, it's a little bit like the NEC. It's there's football stadiums, rugby stadiums, horse show is held there, and then there's all these big massive halls, okay? So we're planning on bringing at least 1,000 people in November, the 15th in Dublin, and we have Stephen Bartlett there. We've got a gentleman by the name of Mike Green, who we all love.
Looking forward to it.
That's it. And then we have Mandy Hickson, and Mandy's an RAF Tornado pilot. Seen her speaking at another summit in Dublin that was more growth orientated, and she's just fantastic. I became friends with her, so she's got a cracking story. She's coming over. Then we're going to add one or two more speakers in, and then we're going to put the finance bit in.
Yeah.
And the finance bit in is where people kind of who are in business, who are self-employed entrepreneurs, business owners, it's where all the bullshit of finance is taken out and they get the black and white. So like most people get in, they worry about getting desks when they open up a business and whatnot.
Yeah.
They should be planning their exit strategy. So like, first of all, we'll start the day on exit strategies and then reverse engineer that back into the day-to-day stuff, like building a legacy plan and a wealth plan through the likes of Walfrid Private. We'll also have corporate finance people there. We'll have mergers and acquisition people. Everything that people have heard about, private equity, I've heard about that, or venture capitalists, they'll all be there speaking about their offering that's there. We've been approached through Walfrid Private by private equity to buy us out, but we feel that we have too much to give, too much energy, that hyperactivity is there. Why pass the buck back to somebody? It's not about money for me. Like, money's only a tool to live your life, but you can live your life with a small amount of money and have a lesser lifestyle. It's just that I have this goal of getting Walfrid Private to $1 billion under management.
Right.
And we're going to do it not by copping out early on and someone giving us money and for us doing it on their behalf, for us to do it for ourselves and our clients.
Hope you're enjoying Success is a System. Every Tuesday we launch it on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Drop us a note and tell us who you would like to see or hear on Success is a System, or what subjects you'd like us to cover to help you and your business. Success is a System. Like, subscribe, and make sure you get it every Tuesday for great lessons and systems that have made people wealthy, healthy and successful. No, that's great. And so if I'm a delegate coming along, I'm going to speak there, but what would be the 3 or 4 hooks that you would say as to this is why you need to be there?
Yeah. So I've gone to summits all around the world.
Speakers, of course.
That's it, of course, yeah. I've gone to summits all around the world because I love them. I just love the education, the knowledge. Some of the lads that you mentor, I've been at stuff with them, and I've been at other things where I've met people along the way. And what I find about a lot of these conferences and summits, and whatever you want to call them, grow cons, there's absolutely zero accountability when you come out with them. So there's one that's ran in Dublin. It's brilliant. I go every year. Everyone, like, we've had Tony Robbins there, but when you come out of there, there's nothing for 363 more days, right? So basically what happens is with the Wealth Summit, it's actually giving people a critical path to financial independence or scale up, because once they leave the summit, they're going to have masterclasses, boot camps, and wealth plans built by Walfrid Private by them. So
that's the sort of start of the journey almost, rather than an end in its own right.
That's it, yeah. So it's education, networking, and accountability. But what we actually give people is a thing called the future map. Yeah. And that's basically where people might be at the intersection of startup, scale up, or exit, wanting to know what to do. We basically give them a bespoke wealth plan through Walfrid Private for themselves.
Well, not just a financial basis, but this is sort of what we do here with my transition mapping. So it's saying, okay, if we're going to do a day, a couple of days, and we've got different approaches to it, or if I mentor individually, we're going to look at, where are you today? No holds barred. Don't give me the bullshit. Tell me the truth. Because if you tell me, if you treat me like a doctor, and I am a doctor of education, but if you treat me like a medical doctor and you give me the wrong symptoms, or you exaggerate up or down your symptoms, I'm going to give you the wrong medicine. That is fatal in some cases. Now, it might not be fatal in a mentoring sense, but it might be. It might kill your business. It might kill your finances. Because if I think you're somewhere you're not, I'm going to give you the wrong one. But once we establish this is where they are, this is where they want to go, we can say, okay, what do we need to do to get from here to there in terms of people? What do we need to do to get from here to there financially? What do we need to do to get from here to there in terms of legal? And what do we need to do in terms of sales and marketing and operation and so on? And the aim being that when people leave, and it sounds like that's where we have a commonality, they have a clear plan. Yeah. They're not just leaving buzzed up. They're leaving with the notes, the tools, the map, if you like, that they need to follow to get there.
And that's it. And I just really believe I've spent, and look, everybody who's on any podcast goes, I've spent hundreds of thousands on education. I genuinely have, because I hadn't a bloody clue about any of this stuff. You go to college, you come out of it, you've got your thing on the wall back in Mammy's sitting room, and that you went to college and you've got this, means absolutely feck all. So what we've really powered ourselves through, and especially through my brother Eddie, who is COO at home. He's the educator, right? I'm the innovator. He's the educator. So it works hand in hand, and we pass it back to our team of 40 who operate within Walfrid Private to give those people accountability and a critical financial map.
Yeah, great. And I think I like that educator innovator, because one of the things that often is a criticism of schools is that, what's the cliche saying? It's not fair on a lot of teachers, but it is those who can't teach kind of thing. So there is that criticism. But people, if they can see that there's people out there that they could follow that have actually done, and you can get that wonderful marriage of education, implementation, motivation, where you bring it all together into a plan, that's when it delivers. And to me, I'm very passionate about education. I'm a doctor of education, awarded by Anglia Ruskin for what I've done with schools and universities. So much as I went to a shit school, for me, I realised it was holding me back. Now, it didn't stop me achieving what I wanted to achieve, but it probably took me 10 years longer. And it probably meant I had to work harder. Whereas to me, if I can have that kind of work ethic, that guttural drive, that desire to be different, and I can overlay that with education, you become unstoppable. Yeah. So it's the two together. So education on its own, I always think of, because I do a fair bit in construction, as the foundation. If you get a good base of education, you can build anything on it. Yeah. If you don't, you might have a shaky building above it. Yeah. But education isn't just about the academia. It's what you can learn at any point in your life once you decide to. But it's important, and it sounds like you agree, that people invest in that education.
100%.
And continue to throughout their life. You're never too old to learn. Every day's a school day kind of thing.
So the amount of entrepreneurs and business owners that we deal with, we've over 3,000 in our network, if you want to call it that, we represent. A lot of them will come in and say, I don't know what you had told me 20 years ago and whatnot. And that's why we bring it back into a systemized, and a lot of people don't like acronyms, but we call it REAP. So if we protect, we accumulate, extract and retain, that compounds what you said about building a foundation, even in the construction side. So when clients come to us, they're all like, I've seen your stuff. I like what you do. It's delivered a little bit different. It's quirky. It's sexy for finance. It's a bit disruptive, but I like it. How can I have involvement? So what we say is, before we worry about investment returns or holding money in tax efficient silos, we want you to focus on protecting what you've built.
Well, let's go through those one at a time, because I think people do like acronyms, and also from your point of view, we can probably create a little 1 minute short on each of those. So tell us again what REAP is, and then give us a minute on each of them if you had to summarise each of those.
So REAP is a centralised wealth management system where we protect, we accumulate, we extract and we retain wealth. On the protection side is where we future-proof your personal and business balance sheet against the unwanted and unexpected. So in simple terms, we tell people to get the protection right, that when things or the shit hits the fan, that you've protected the legacy. And once that's protected, you can start building your empire.
So is that like trusts and...
It would be trust, it could be it could be the basic life cover, right? It could be tax-efficient life cover that people go, hey, paying tax, don't need life cover. But when you tell them that they can have life cover in a tax-efficient way, it's called Relevant Life in the UK. It's called Pension Term in Ireland. It basically makes sense for them. Yeah. So just little wins like this. So what we always say to people when we're protecting wealth, the biggest wins in wealth management aren't from investment returns exclusively. It's from tax efficient holding up the monies in whatever structure.
Well, and interestingly, I've done a lot when I did Secret Millionaire for a few years after. Every couple of months we'd meet up, some of us, all of us. There'd be things like Coots Bank would do a dinner and so on. You go along, and as a behavioural profiler, I couldn't stop myself from thinking, is it about men versus women? Is it about educated versus uneducated? Is it young? Is it old? Is it this culture, this background, that background? All these things. All I could find was it was about the passion. But what I also learned from that, and then mentoring that I did over time, is that and this is a rough number, but I think most entrepreneurs who get an exit or a big payout probably piss 70% of it up and lose it. And so that protect, I think, is really, really important to say, almost before you spend, hang on, a bit like if you're going to develop a house, live in it for a month or two first before you spend anything or do anything. Don't just go out and buy the Ferrari, buy this, buy that, because I know we both know Rob Moore. Rob will talk about, why would you put 400,000 into a Ferrari when you could buy a couple of houses with a 400,000 and put 30 into it and get a lease on it, and then your rent on your houses is going to pay for your lease on your Ferrari. So then you've got a capital and you've got a Ferrari kind of thing. So that protects.
It's different. It's not what people are doing when we meet them that's wrong. It's how they're doing it. So that compounds what Rob says there.
So that's, I guess, what birds of a feather flock together. So the commonality draws us together, and we find each other on socials and so on. But move me on from, so we've protected, we've given them some tools and some advice around protection. What in a minute, what's accumulating?
So with accumulation, that's where we basically open up money flows and cash flows, because if you don't have cash flows, you'll end up on the dole. You'll shoot your business, it'll be gone, right? So we break it into short-term, medium-term and long-term money flows, but put the correct tax structures around these to make sure that, again, if we go back down the retirement account route, everybody thinks you can only get your pension at 65, but we can, if we're strategic in our approach and the business has a shelf life, we can roll the accumulation into the extraction and hack a pension at 50 in the Republic of Ireland.
Or lend the business money from the pension.
Well, that's it. Like in the UK, you have SIPs, but you can't buy residential property, or you can. It's hard. There's a gentleman by the name of Hadley that does it very well, not too far from here. But in Ireland, we're allowed to buy resi, okay? But like when we go meet business owners, are like, "Oh, property, I hate it. Why? Tax and tenants, right?" I said, "How'd you buy the property?" "In my own name." "Right, so you're paying tax. Why did you not buy it in your retirement account?" And like, I didn't know I could do it.
Yeah.
You can do it through a SIP in Ireland.
So we've gone from protect to accumulate, and you said you roll in that sometimes into extraction, so you can pull some out early maybe, or tax efficiently, and then the retain bit.
So just on the extraction bit, for business owners, we might make them chop their business offering up into different companies, because again, one part of the process could be bought out by private equity, and if they do that, they can get the likes of entrepreneur relief.
Okay. Yeah. And is that 10% in Ireland? So
it's $1 million at 10%. I think it was 10 million over here. Boris had
well, luckily when I sold it was up to 20 million.
But, was it? Jesus. Happy days. It's only $1 million back home at the moment. And then that rolls into retention. So that's legacy control, intergenerational wealth transfer, trusts, and then it could even, like, they're all interlinked. No one part of REAP is standalone. So like the retention side could actually look at you becoming a tax tourist and retiring your pension out to Portugal to avail of the non-habitual residency program.
Okay.
So it's a 10% tax on your pension.
And you're constantly, I guess, updating your members, delegates, whatever you might call them, on the changes every year in taxation or law and so on.
Look, it's moving that quick at the moment. I don't know why, but there's changes to all these. Like there was a golden visa in Portugal. A lot of our clients, international clients that would have might have had a European passport, and they were all availing of this thing in Portugal, but it's not available to the magnitude that it was. So then it pivots back and it goes from pulling their retirement accounts down in Portugal. But just very quickly on it, if they pull their retirement account down in Portugal, not Ireland, they can accelerate their financial independence to retire early or get to that work optional stage of life by maybe 10 or 12 years.
Okay. That's interesting. And then retention.
Again, I kind of hit it on it there. It's just making sure that nothing's sure in life, but we do know that we get hit with taxes and debt, right? So when we blend the two of them together, you don't want to get debt taxes. So there's ways that you can set up family partnerships. I don't know if you have them over here to the same magnitude, legacy trusts and whatnot, Section 72 release back home, where we make sure that you don't have to give all your money to the taxman when you're gone, that you can actually avail of these estate protection trusts to make sure that the family keep the money, or charity, or else you can just give it to the taxman.
Well, and trusts will do a bunch of that. But that brings me back to when we're talking about wealth, private wealth and so on, often people think of that as, right, that's for people who have sold a house, inherited some money, got the wealth. But actually, one of the things I was always conscious of is, no, that shit has to start long before you get the wealth, because you want to be planning towards it whilst you're building a business, whilst you're building that up. And similarly, when I had Ian Brent on, who was talking about how to 10x an EBITDA business as opposed to the average in the UK is 3.9, it was about what are the different things you need to do. But more importantly, he said, if you want to optimize the exit multiple, you need to start 3 years out. So easily. From your private wealth and wealth summit and so on, do people get involved, or do you urge, or would you recommend people to be talking to you, even if they're building a business, they've maybe got a lot of wealth now, but they're working towards a plan to have that in 3 years? When would be the good time?
Yeah, so the avatar of our average client is they're 45 years of age. They've worked around the houses and they said, I can do that better, like us all, right? And they go out and have a go at their own, right? It's probably at that stage. So sorry, we have 30-year-olds, we have these tech whiz kids that do all the AI stuff, right? They're brilliant. I love them. I wish I was one of them, right? But the average majority, I hate the word average, being 45, right? As I said, they'll run out and they'll plan on the fit out military planning on the fit out of the office block and whatnot when they set up. They need to be military on the exit plan, because if you know what the exit looks like,
what's the end in mind?
You can just reverse engineer that, peel the process back to what, and what you need to do is sell many salespeople you need, or many processing people. So to answer your question, the short, you should approach whoever your wealth advisor is as early on in your business planning process, in my opinion, because again, it can dictate how many limited companies you'll hold to basically avail of extraction.
Yeah, I mean, I call my approach for 20 years transition mapping or transformation mapping. Mapping is the key word in it. And, the three areas I talk about is, you're conscious, you've got a subconscious, but a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of the creative subconscious. Now, the creative subconscious is often called the taxi driver, because when you get in a taxi, the first question they ask you, where do you want to go? Yeah.
Similarly,
if you were driving here today, you had a driver, but if you were driving here, you would think, shit, I'm in a different country, I don't know where I'm going. You'd probably want a sat nav, and you'd want to put a postcode in rather than just Peterborough or North or anything. So what I often say to people is, we need to program your taxi driver, your creative subconscious, to be a very efficient, effective and direct route. But we also need you to get the destination, which is exactly where do you want to be? What is your goal? Is it to have £1 million? Is it to change the world? Is it to lose 2 stone? Is it all of these things? But we're getting those goals, and the more specific, measurable, attainable, relevant and timed, smart they are, the more we've got that postcode. And then a mentor, in effect, becomes the sat nav. So, creative subconscious, that tells you and focuses you on doing it. The taxi driver will get you there, and often a mentor will be the vehicle that will make sure that you keep focused on that journey and don't get too easily distracted. But all of those things are really important. But it all starts in whether you're talking in Covey terms or most of the business gurus of the last 100 years, is where do you want to be? What's the end in mind? Yeah, and I don't think that one mentor will give you that either. So, that's a good point. Yeah, I've got a mentor. His name's Tony Gordon. He's the ex-president of the LIA in the UK. He's based out in Bristol, so we're flying to him once a quarter. But he's also the first non-American president of what's called the $1 Million Round Table, which is the premier association for finance professionals in the world, like CFP planners and whatnot. And again, I go over there. I'm actually going to Nashville next week. On that, I've spoke at it in front of 14,000 people in Orlando before. I'm out there in Nashville next week, just again to learn from people who do it a different way. It's all the same stuff, but it's the way they do it in different jurisdictions under legislation that permits around the world. But again, the likes of going to see the likes of yourself on the scale up and the different aspects from your mistakes that you made, because we all make mistakes, and then going to see Tony. Tony's in his 70s now. He's done it all in finance. He's seen it all. It's just great to go and bounce, even just go back to the basics, Well, and I think we need different teachers. We talked about that in terms of at school, you don't have one, you have several, because they got skills in different areas. But equally, I think at different stages, you might need a primary school teacher, then a secondary school teacher, and then a university lecturer or expert or professor in a certain subject. And, I often use the example of, say, David Beckham on football. When he was at Sunday League, the coach he had, the manager he had, would have been perfect for what he needed at that time. They taught him all the skills he needed to get recognised and move up to the next league, as it were. And when he moved, he just accepted that same mentor and coach that he had in Sunday League wasn't the right one for this one. And it goes on through the leagues. And I say to people, I've built business, I've helped people build business up to sort of tens and hundreds of millions, and I've been part of that journey, so I can kind of teach you that stuff. I've never taken anyone or worked with anyone that I've helped who's a billionaire. I've heard and listened to and learned from some, but I can't take you on that journey. So if, for instance, someone's goal is to be a billionaire, I say, I can take you this part. I can help you with the Sunday League. I can help you with the next league. Or if it was driving, I could help you with go-karting. I could help you with Formula Renault. I could help you with Formula 4, 3 and 2 maybe. But when it comes to Formula 1, you need a new mentor, a new manager, a new coach. And so accepting that it's not disloyal to move on from a particular teacher or learner. In fact, it's necessary. And actually, if they're a good teacher, learner, mentor, they will be saying to you, you need to move on now. I wish you luck and we've become mates, but now it's time. Your network changes at different stages in life and career. Like if you look at the lads you were in school with back in the day, they're
a lot of them probably aren't around at the moment to the way they were in the past. Just they moved on to different things in their life. It's the same with mentors. Like I've had probably 3 or 4 now, and I always come outside of the jurisdiction I'm in to learn the way people might be doing it in a more progressive way elsewhere. That's why I've gone to America, I've gone to Canada, and I'm in the UK as well. So Australia's a bit too far. So
we're getting that. Yeah, well, I used to have a business in Australia. There's a long way to go.
Yeah.
But a beautiful place. So left school, hyperactive, done various careers, found your niche, working your niche, growing your niche, scaling your niche. Got a few systems that you teach others. So we talked about REAP.
Yeah.
And the detail of that: protect, accumulate, extract, retain. What other systems, if there's 2 or 3 systems that you say are what you use to keep you grounded, keep you focused, keep you motivated, or have been responsible for your success to date, what are the systems that you think are necessary for success?
Great question. So like the systems that have helped me is having the right team around. I know I'm a terrible person at minor detail. That's probably coming from the hyperactivity stuff, looking at from a hot air balloon. So basically knowing when you're bad at something. I believe in a thing called unique ability. Dan Sullivan taught us that at Strategic Coach. And it's whereby you can't be good at everything. So you might as well focus on the 2 or 3 things that you're good at and hire the people that are experts at it. So you can focus on what you're good at, because they're probably not good at what you're good at. So it's just knowing when to hire the right team. What else has helped us? The whole 10x mentality. Think big, take big action, set the goals 10 times higher than what the average person in your industry might take, and take about the action levels that will help you achieve that. And then after that is, for me, the mentor world. Like, why the hell would you waste time when you can hire somebody who's wasted that time on your behalf, right? And that's with the best respect in the world. Hopefully I'll be spared in the world for 40 more years or whatever it might be. And people come to me wanting to learn. There's no point in other people taking the hit on the time. So I think, to summarize, mentors, 10x, and team is probably the system and processes.
That's 3 great simple areas for somebody to focus on, and thank you for that. I mean, just on that, and little analogies in my mind help me lock in when people give me good hooks and lessons and so on. Is on the team thing. I don't know if you know the story of Henry Ford when he was sued by the New York the New York Times called him stupid and he sued them. Do you know?
No.
So Henry Ford left school at 14, couldn't read, write. Built a multi-billion pound business with Ford Motor Company that has sustained over 100 years now. But the New York Times called him stupid in the 1930s. And so he sued them, and he represented himself in court. And so in their defense, they said, couldn't read, couldn't write, left school at 14, de facto he is stupid. And he took in a copy of a box that he had on his desk. It was not much, it was smaller than A4, and it had 6 buttons on it. And he said, I may have left school at 14. I maybe can't read, write in the way that, or to the extreme extent that you guys can. But let me tell you, this is a copy of a box I have in my office. And of course, it was wired as opposed to Wi-Fi. But he said, if I press that button, one of the best brains in America financially comes into my office within 10 minutes. If I press that button, one of the best engineers in the world will be in my office within 10 minutes. If I press that button, one of the best salespeople in America will be in my office in 10 minutes. And he said, my knowledge, my expertise is knowing my limitations to the extent that I'll find the best possible people to build that team and to help me achieve what I need to achieve. So great example. And similarly, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, I think it was, when he was asked, it was Bill Gates, let me get myself right here. Someone said to him once, so what exactly do? You're not a programmer, you're not. And he said, well, I may not be able to play any of those instruments as well as all those people that I employ. He said, but I'm like the conductor. And when I pull that together and I conduct them, we create beautiful things like a conductor can from individual instruments. So that unique ability, but recognizing, I think the worst thing people can have is so much ability that they don't see the lack of their own ability to believe that they can find people with better ability in any particular skill set.
That's it. Like, I was coming across on the plane there today, and like, we've a lot of professional services clients that we look after. Consultants, hospital consultants, GPs, dentists, pharmacists. And my favorite type of client is the hustler, the entrepreneur that went against the tide. Yeah, love looking after them people. But there's something that came up there that I was researching over the last couple of days, and it was like in medical school they don't teach about EBITDA. In pharmacy school they don't teach it about accountancy, for argument's sake, or in engineering they don't teach it about private equity, which is true. But people, as educated as they are, still think they can do it themselves. And it's only when they come across somebody like yourself on mentorship or ourselves on financial planning that we can accelerate all the things that they've always dreamt of a lot quicker by them outsourcing.
Well, we expand their thinking, I guess. Yeah. And that may not be down to us. We might just be the catalyst that takes the skill that we hear from Grant Cardone or Dan Sullivan and so on, and we share that. So we expand their mind. And I love the saying that once unlike an elastic band, once a mind is expanded, it can never regain its original dimensions. Yeah. You know, elastic band, it will ping back, but your mind won't once it's expanded. And on the 10x thing, I believe as a behavioural profiler that the only reason people don't think big, dream big, plan big is because they're scared of being embarrassed. And actually, I'd be more embarrassed at achieving a small goal than them failing on a massive, hairy-ass goal.
Yeah, we set massive goals, we do, inside and personally as well. Don't always get them, but there's a thing called the gap. And once you're hitting 80 or 90% of those, just roll forward, stay positive, work smarter, maybe not harder, to make sure you get 100% the next time. And you won't. Yeah. But you need to keep having a go.
Well, it's been great. I look forward to coming over to the Wealth Summit on the 15th of November.
That's great.
As I said, we'll put the link in there. I really appreciate your time. Hope you've enjoyed. Lots to go through. I often recommend when you get these podcasts, the beauty of podcasting is you can listen again and again. You can speed it up if you want to hear us faster. You can slow it down if you want to hear something again. And that's a good way to consume on Audible, Spotify, or any of the podcast channels. Thank you very much for your time, Richie.
Thanks so much.
If you've enjoyed, please share, subscribe, like, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on Success is a System.